You're listening to the Spark podcast, voice of the Electrical Trades Union, and I'm Phil Cleary, and Dean Mighell joins me in the studios of the Spark, Secretary of the Electrical Trades Union. And the federal election is only a couple of days away. It is a very important day. Dean, before we get to the federal election, tell us about 11 years under John Howard. What's it meant for the ETU and what's it meant for you as a union leader?
Well, hello there, Mr. Cleary. On this lovely spring day in Melbourne, it's hard to think bad thoughts, but I suppose when you talk about John Howard and 11 years of attacks on trade unions and our ability to represent workers, it's been a pretty daunting decade and a bit. The Howard government, I think, Phil, we need to remember is they set out with a union-busting agenda way back in '96. They introduced the Workplace Relations Act. It was a very severe step forward over previous union worker rights we had in this country. It was a blatant attack on unions. And our union, the ETU, was the very first union to have orders put on it under the new Workplace Relations Act on the very day the Act came into being, 1st of January 1996, at the Mobile Cracker job. It's been warfare ever since. It has been government versus union, not so much employer versus union. You get a bit of that, but most of our blues have been ideologically driven by federal government.
Some observers say, well, unions out of control need to counterbalance, need more control or power in the hands of government or employer. How do you respond to that?
Well, that's really a code. Unions aren't out of control at all. We're very much in control of what we do. We're very much constrained by some pretty hostile legislation and trying to make the very best we can of our members. See, people talk about controlling unions. What does that really mean? Lindsay Tanner, Labor, believe it or not, member for Melbourne, came out and said it's Labor's role to restrain strong unions, control, restrain. Well, does that mean you just limit our ability to function, to represent workers, to get a better go in life? No one talks about restraining CEOs of companies or company profits, Phil. But Lindsay Tanner talks about restraining unions, geez, hard times.
It's a funny concept, Dean, because I was in the Parliament when Paul Keating was there and he was talking about enterprise bargaining. Now, wasn't that supposed to be an opportunity for productivity to reign supreme, so unions and employers could work out at enterprise level what sort of outcomes were reasonable?
Well, it was. That was its design, and certainly productivity had reigned supreme in some industries. Some other industries, Phil, that was set on paid rates award, where everyone in the industry got the same level of pay. Labour-intensive industries, where labour makes up a massive cost component of the cost of employment, they were paid rates awards. Workers went even under Keating's system for 3 or 4 years without a wage increase. Our members in the contracting industry, an example. We then replaced that with industry style or pattern agreements, which employers demanded, which our people demanded. So I think we've tried, in despite of many, many bad laws that have existed, that our Howard government made incredibly worse, to get the best deal we can. We've done all right in very, very trying circumstances, but things are very, very different in 2007 than they were in '96.
What does it mean for a trade union leader? It looks to me that it's a far more complex industrial regime than it's ever been. How does that impact on you as Secretary of the Southern States branch of the ETU?
Well, I remember when I started as a full-time official in 1988, as a 25-year-old. It was very, very straightforward out there. You went out there, you worked out agreements with employers, the union signed off, the employers signed off, it was enforced by the Industrial Relations Commission. It was a pretty fair world. For union officials now and for a union secretary, you've got the worry of constant threats of litigation just by trying to represent your members to get a fair go. You are always in the gun. We have seen union officials, the Howard government attack union officials, demonise union officials, and the crime we've committed is having the absolute compassion for people to try and make sure they get treated well in life. And, we don't always behave in the most glamorous of fashions, and that's a fair statement, but it's a rough and tumble world, Phil. Just a bit hard when Labor joins in the chorus. You expect your mates to be on your side, at least have some understanding. It's a tough environment, to answer your question, but geez, I love it. I wouldn't say I don't.
Does a union leader have to be much more skilled now than maybe 12 years ago?
Well, I think I'm very lucky that I've had the opportunity to grow up in this environment, and I probably don't know much different. You adapt. But to be really brutally honest, I think there are unions that haven't adapted and leaders that haven't adapted to the circumstances and provided the initiative for their organisation to move forward. That's a huge thing. Now, we can throw rocks at the Howard government, but in all honesty, could unions have adapted, led better and achieved better, working harder, more strategically? Yes, we could. But it's very hard to do that when you're under attack all the time, as many unions find themselves.
What's the most frustrating thing you experience as a secretary of the union in terms of the public perception?
The demonisation by the media is really tough to bear. It is, you're branded someone now. It's the catch cry is thug, which I'm told, I'm reassured, actually stands for thoroughly huggable union guy. And I saw a T-shirt.
Which you are, of course.
Yeah, of course. I saw his T-shirt in the city the other day saying "Union thugs are sexy," which put a bit of a spring in my step. It reminded me of about 12 kilos ago, Phil. But in all seriousness, it's it's very, very hard being demonised and having your character besmirched for no valid reason, just to suit people's political ends. Not being able to get a fair go in the media is really tough.
So what's it like when you're at a sporting club or somewhere and you meet someone, and most people will know who you are, but if you happen to, in another time, had to say, I'm a secretary of a union, what was it like?
Well, once people know you, it's great. But, people often don't like telling you, aren't very hostile. I very seldom get people hostile to me. Most people are really great. But, in your life as a union official, if you're a little bit notorious, for want of a better word, there is a real prejudice that goes with that that's harmful to your family. Your family gets wounded by what you do. Your kids get wounded by what you do, particularly if you're demonised in the media. And that's been tough.
Tell me, the election coming up, a lot of debate about House of Reps, the Senate, the ETU giving money to the Greens. What are you telling ETU members to do on election day? And you have got Mike Simon out there in Deakin as well, so give us the full suite.
Well, I think the most important thing for any Australian to do is to get rid of the Howard government. That's a very, very simple message. If we don't, then vote away our own wage increases, and as Greg Combo succinctly put it, we've got to wake up. There's no, don't worry about wedge politics and, illegal immigrants and babies overboard. We've been treated like mugs for years. Got to get rid of Howard. The second thing, of course, is that in the lower house, Labor can govern. They're the alternative government, and we've got to support them. Mike Simon, ETU shop steward, rank and file member, terrific bloke standing in the federal marginal seat of Deakin, and I'd urge everyone to help him if they can. Andrew Campbell, again, ETU rank and file shop steward, lovely bloke, fought his battle with cancer, courageous man out there standing for Deakin. I'll tell you what, anyone in Deakin, in Menzies where Andrew's standing, you wouldn't get a better bloke represent you than him. Heart and soul, lovely bloke. So two good people from our union, many other good candidates. We've got to try and get them up.
Lindsay Tanner, Melbourne.
Yeah, he's standing.
You're rubbing swords with him. Are you two getting on?
He's a lovely bloke, Lindsay. I liked him when
you
he was a lefty.
You didn't like his YouTube much.
Oh.
But we are going to respond in kind with YouTube, but we're getting there shortly.
I always hate it when pseudo lefties try and claim to be the most progressive people in the world and then come out and make statements like strong unions need to be restrained. Well, what does that mean? We're meant to be a weak union so that we get help? I mean, please.